So now, without looking on your paper, and I have no idea what you wrote down, would it be fair to say that some of those goals might require some extra finances? Possibly, maybe not, depending on what you wrote. Some of your goals might not require any extra finances. But would it be fair to say that maybe some of them actually might require extra time? Maybe, maybe not. There's one thing though, without looking, without knowing what you put on that paper, there's one thing that you need no matter what you wrote down. What do you think that is? Yep, you need your health. No matter what you wrote down, you need your health. Okay? And the problem with our health is this. What right now are you basing your health on?
I feel.
Yeah. How I look and how I feel, right? That's what we base our health on. And maybe we go get our yearly checkup once a year and blood comes back, oh, everything looks fine. Okay? There's a huge problem with that. Okay? If you base your health on how you look and how you feel, you're going to miss the top 3 killers in the country today. You're going to miss them. What do you think the number 3 killer in the country today? Okay. Yep. Okay, so the number 3, the number 3 killer is heart disease. The number 2 killer is cancer. Okay? So much so that if I had 100 people in this room right now, and I asked this question, in fact, I'm going to ask it to you guys right now. Raise your hand if you think you're going to die of heart disease or cancer. Okay?
It runs in my family.
Okay, exactly. Okay, all right. And that was my next point is this. If I had 100 people in the room and I asked this question, how many do you think would actually raise their hand out of 100 people?
5 to 20.
Yep, you're right. It's about 5%, 5 to 10% roughly. So you're very close. Okay? If I asked them, I would hear that exact same answer. It's genetic. My mom had this type of cancer, my grandmother had this type of cancer, so it's genetic. Or the other answer I might hear is, well, I am getting older, so, maybe it's my age. Do you know how many, so let's say 5 to 10, let's say 10 people raised their hand, and that was the answer I got. How many people should have raised their hand? Statistically will die of heart disease or cancer in this country?
60%.
60?
50.
50?
Between 50 and 60. 70.
83 people.
Wow.
83% should have raised their hand. So this is the problem. Why didn't 83 people raise their hand? Exactly. It's that it's going to happen. It's not going to happen to me, right? I'm going to defy the odds. I'm going to be one of the people that doesn't happen to me. But again, that's a horrible statistic. 83%. 83%. So what I'm going to show you guys tonight is how you can take that 83% and get it less than 10% if you do something with it. Literally. So, 83% will die of that stuff. The horrible words we never want to hear from, a doctor after we get our blood work and tests done every year. The last thing we want to hear is that. 83%. It's this huge percentage. Okay? But what I'm going to show you right now is this. It's called, who's ever heard, and I call it the law of health. And it's truly based on a law. Okay? What's the greatest thing about a law?
I don't like all the laws, so I can't really.
Okay, but let's say a law in nature, like the law of gravity.
It's provable.
Yeah, it's incapable, it's provable, and it's incapable of violating itself.
Right.
I'll
Like
believe it unless I see it anyway.
So again, okay, let's just take the law of gravity. If we were on a 20-story building and you sat there and said, you know what, I don't believe that there's a law of gravity, and you said, go ahead and push me off, what do you think is going to happen? If somebody pushed you off, you're going to fall to the ground regardless. Even if someone said, I don't believe there's a law of gravity. Why? Because it exists. Okay, there's also the law of health. And this is the thing. Most of us walk through our life and we're in violation of the law of health and we never know it because we base our health, again, on how we look and how we feel. So we go through life and we go, well, I got the clean blood work and I went to my doctor and they gave me the clean bill of health. I must be healthy. And I've kept my weight down and I've exercised and I've started eating better food because now I buy it at Whole Foods and it's all organic.
So not good enough.
And so it's not good enough. Because most of those people are in violation of the law of health, which I'm going to teach you here in a second. And I'm also going to show you how if you're not in violation of that law of health, that's now when you can take that huge percentage and squash it down to almost nothing. So imagine being able to walk through your life like you had just said about the cancer, right? Wasn't it cancer? Okay, imagine now if you could walk through your life and go, you know what? Now I'm going in line with the law of health and I don't have to worry about the cancer. Because, yeah, it might happen, but it's such a small percentage that I don't have to even spend any time thinking about it. Wouldn't that be cool? Wouldn't that be awesome information? Okay, that's what I'm going to share with you right now. Okay? So, on your pieces of paper, make 2 dots any size. And I'm going to do the same right here. Okay? We've got to start at the very beginning about how all of us were created in our mother's womb and how we all developed. Or this is going to make no sense at all to you guys. Okay? So there's 2 dots. Those 2 dots, now imagine them microscopic. You need a microscope to see those. Okay? Those two dots are representing 2 cells that come together at conception. Okay? 2 cells come together at conception, and 14 days after conception, the very first organ is formed. What organ do you think that is? Okay? What controls the heart? Your brain controls the heart. Okay? So 14 days after conception, who had babies in here? Who's had kids? Okay, all of you. All right? Did you know that you were pregnant 14 days after conception?
No.
Probably not. Most women don't, okay? There's already a brain there. Okay? Without this forming first, nothing happens in development. That baby would go no further. If the heart grew first, nothing would happen. You wouldn't even probably ever know you were pregnant and your body would get rid of it. Okay? So here's the brain. Then what does it have to grow in order to start to grow these other organs? It has to grow the communication system. Well, what's a communication system? Yeah, it has to grow the spinal cord and then all the millions of nerves. So the brain's there, then it grows the spinal cord, then it grows these millions of nerves. Now the system's in place and it can send information from here. The brain sends information down the spinal cord, across this nervous system to grow. Now we can grow the heart.
Right.
Now we can grow the lungs, the digestive tract, the kidneys, the thyroid. You know, whatever, all the organs, muscles, and bones in your body, everything grows. And in approximately 280 days after conception, now this baby is ready to come out of mom, and it went from 2 cells to 72 trillion functioning cells in 280 days. But your brain did everything. Your brain grew every single organ in your body. How powerful is that brain? Extremely powerful. In fact, you can live approximately 1/1000th of a second without a nervous system. But you can live about 30 days without food. You can live about maybe, 3 days without water. You can live, depending on how long you can hold your breath. But you might be able to even live 4 or 5 minutes if you can hold your breath a long time without air. But you can only live 1/1000th of a second without your nervous system. So how important is that system? It grew everything in your body.
Full operation.
It is, okay? So now my question, and I'll go back to this, is were you ever taught to take care of that system?
No.
Were you ever taught that you could take care of that system?
No.
Nope. But all of you have kids, and all of you taught your kids to brush and floss their teeth if they're old enough to get the teeth, right? Why? Why don't we wait until our kids have a problem, until they're screaming in pain in the middle of the night, because it always happens in the middle of the night, right? In the middle of the night, they're screaming in pain, and now they have a diseased tooth in their mouth, and the next morning you got to take them in the first thing to the dentist so that they can drill that tooth out and fix that cavity. None of us would do that, right? All of us have taught our kids to brush and floss. Why? Because approximately 120 years ago or so, there was a dentist who started thinking about this and saying, hey, you know what? I bet you if we did some preventative measures, and I started to create these things, and he called them the toothbrush, and started to brush and floss our teeth, that maybe we could prevent things. So now today, you could, if you take good care of your teeth, you could technically go through maybe your entire life and never really have major issues with your teeth because it's preventative. Okay? So now let's go back to the whole nervous system. Yes, you can take care of that nervous system, and yes, you should. And if you don't, then now you're in violation of the law of health. Because the law of health is this: if your brain grew every organ in the body, through this system, if you don't take care of the system and there's any interference, the brain can no longer get proper life, I say, across this system to all the organ cells and tissues, then what starts to happen? Those cells and tissues start to become in a disease state. And that's typically when we're at the doctor going, man, I feel really weird.
They start to shut down.
Yeah, because organs start to shut down. And what happens? We start to have symptoms, and then the number one cause of death is what? Remember, we talked about number 3 and number 2.
Sure.
The number one cause of death is what they're going to do when you go to the doctor, and now an organ's in a disease state.
It's the drugs.
Medications. Prescription medications is the number one cause of death. It's a study called Death by Medicine by a guy named Gary Knoll, PhD, did the research. Number one cause of death is the medications. And now I'm going to help you guys understand this just a little bit further. I'm going to put it in terms that you can really understand, okay? You're driving your car tomorrow, and you're driving along, and all of a sudden the check engine light goes on. And you kind of think, well, that's kind of weird. I bought this car brand new, and I've always serviced it before it needs service. So you're a block away from your best friend that you grew up with who's a mechanic now, and you've always taken your car to this shop. So you pull in, and Joe sees you coming, so he comes running out to your car, and he goes, hey, what's going on? How you doing? You go, Joe, my check engine light about a block or two ago went on. And he goes, oh, no problem, I'll take care of that for you. And he runs into his shop, and he comes back out, sits in your seat for about maybe 2 or 3 minutes, kind of fiddling around with some stuff in the dash there, and he hops back out of his car, and he goes, hey, he goes, I took care of your problem, you're good to go. And he goes, you only owe me $400. Kind of like, I wonder what Joe did. He was only sitting in my seat for a few minutes. So you kind of peer over Joe's shoulder and you look into your dashboard there, and you notice that all Joe did was put a piece of tape over your check engine light until your problem's okay.
I was about
Did he
to say
fix
you
it?
reset it with the. You can reset the
Yeah.
codes.
Or what if you went and clipped the wire to that light, right?
Yeah.
What is a check engine light? It's a warning sign. What is when an organ starts to fail and you start to have some symptoms? Maybe it starts as just some headaches here and there. But I just know, oh, I'll just take some aspirin, I'll take some Tylenol. But what happens? Those usually always get worse. Okay, so you're taking the pills more frequently. Okay, what if it's the digestive tract? Gosh, I just keep getting this upset stomach every time I eat. So it starts as some Tums or Rolaids or whatever. Again, we think because we buy it over the counter, it's no big deal. But what are those symptoms? They're the warning light. And what you're doing now with your most important asset, which is your health, remember, you can't accomplish any of the goals that you wrote down without your health. And you're starting to cover it up. So what starts to happen right there? You're already been in violation of the law of health for a long time. Now it's just gotten worse because an organ is starting to fail. And what do? I take a pill. And now when it's bad enough to where over-the-counters don't work anymore, now what do? I make an appointment to my doctor. I go into the doctor. They run a bunch of tests on me and they go, yeah, you have, whatever it is. And what are they going to do?
Half the time they don't
Or
even
they
tell
don't
you
know.
anything
Okay,
wrong.
and maybe that's the case.
That's what's happened to
but
me.
typically what they do is they're going to give you a pill, right? Typically. And you're going to take that pill and you're going to think you're better because your problem is gone. You don't have that pain anymore. You don't have those symptoms anymore because it's covering it up. It's just like you paid Joe $400 and drove your car down the street even though all you did was put a piece of tape over it. You didn't take care of the problem. You just covered up the problem. So now, write your answers down. What do you think as far as industrialized nations in the world today? Where does the United States rank? Out of the top 37 industrialized nations in the world, where do we rank as far as health of a nation? Number 1 being the healthiest, number 37 being the worst. Where do you think we fit in? Write your answers down and then shout them out.
35.
35, okay?
You do.
32.
32.
We both said 35 at
35,
the same
okay.
time.
Okay, you guys were really, really close.
37.
37.
I figured that.
Okay, so why are we 37?
Because they keep making up new drugs and it's just making people sicker.
Okay, let's just say this.
Just being a bit
Plus a
Let's just say this.
combination for fast
We
food.
are approximately 7.5% of the world's population today. Very
Yeah.
small percentage. We're not even 10% of the world's population in this country. What percentage of the medications manufactured in the world today do you think we consume?
95%.
Close. A little lower, 83%. Somewhere around that number, right around 80 to 83%. That's what we consume. So what are we? Let's cover it up and keep going. So what do you think?
All they're doing is trying to
again,
make money.
why do you think we are the sickest nation? It's because of that philosophy. It's a poor philosophy. Okay? So now let's go back to the very basics, what I talked about. What's a better way? Well, if the brain grew the organs, if it grew your heart, if it grew the digestive tract, if it grew all these organs, don't you think as long as this information is flowing freely, if it grew an organ, it could keep it healthy?
Yep.
Absolutely.
If it's healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so now write this down. SUB LUX ATION. N, sorry, N is in Nancy. Subluxation. Has anybody ever heard that term? How many, out of this group, how many have been to chiropractors before? Okay, but never heard this term. Okay, this is an extremely important term. That's why I had you write it down. What is a subluxation? This is what a subluxation is. Plastic model of the spine. It is a vertebra that has lost its proper position. Now it's stuck like this, and it's putting pressure on the nerves exiting your spine there. So ultimately, what's it doing? It's choking off the life that the brain is trying to send to keep that organ healthy. And the organ can't communicate with the brain properly, so the brain doesn't know what's even happening with that organ. So now cells start to die in an organ because that's normal. But under the law of health, if an organ is communicating back with the brain properly, then what happens? It's going to get rid of a cancerous or an abnormal cell, and it's going to replace it with a healthy cell. Okay, so now there's a lack of communication because there's a subluxation here. So let's say it's going to the heart. Now heart cells start to die. Brain doesn't know it because it can't communicate back with the brain. So now what happens? I walk through life and I go, hey, I'm totally healthy. I feel totally fine. Who has known somebody that has had a massive heart attack, maybe even died of a heart attack, got the clean bill of health from the doctor, they got the treadmill test, the blood test, all the blood work back, and they said, you're healthy as a horse, and a day later, a week later, a month later, that person died of a massive heart attack. Yep.
My grandfather.
Your grandfather, okay.
Literally 3 days later.
Yeah, 3 days later,
Massive
right?
heart attack.
Yes. Why is it that you can go get all these tests, and we have the most sophisticated equipment, they still can't measure it? Do you know that the best research today states this? Actually, write this down. 60%. As long as an organ is functioning above 60%, you will have no symptoms. You will think you're totally fine. So there's your grandfather going through his life. How old was he approximately?
He was 53.
Okay, young.
Yeah.
53-year-old guy, going through his life, got the clean bill of health, said you're healthy, and dies of a massive heart attack because there's stuff that still can't be measured today. Just can't be. Now, again, let's go back. If you knew to take care of this spine and nervous system, and you knew to come get adjusted, and you knew how to take care of this system, do a little bit every day, just like you brush and floss your teeth, right? You don't wait until the day before your dentist appointment, and it's been almost 6 months, and start brushing and flossing your teeth because you have an appointment tomorrow. No, that would be foolish because they're still going to find something wrong with it if you waited that long. But if you take care of it every day, then now you go and you're not afraid to go because you know you're probably going to come out with a clean bill of health for your teeth. Okay, so now you now know, okay, these subluxations are devastating to my health. They create problems. They create organs in the life not to get to organs, and organs not be able to communicate back with the brain. So that's how you're going to become in a diseased state. But if I know how to go get these checked, and I start to take care of the spine, I start to take the subluxation, totally great. So the top 3 killers in the country, the cancers, the heart disease, the diabetes, the autoimmune stuff, that a lot of times, like you said, they sometimes have no idea. They're like, I don't know how you got like this. I have no idea.
I've had so many tests run on me and they tell me nothing's ever wrong, but I know there's problems.
Yeah. So I look at it this way. I don't know either. But what does know? I know this. If you have subluxation to your spine, it's choking off life, going to organs, and if we remove this interference, and that's what a corrective care chiropractor does, remove the interference so that now these organs can become in a healthy state again, and they're balanced, guess what? Your life looks totally different.
Oh, it
And-
feels totally different.
Oh,
too.
totally different. Totally different. Factor that adjusts your spine. Big difference. Big difference. This is the difference. First and foremost, I'm never going to touch someone's spine and adjust it without seeing x-rays. Would you want me to adjust your spine right now
No.
without seeing x-rays, knowing how important this system is? No way. So I want to know.
That works.
Goes back to the old saying, a picture's worth 1,000 words. It's probably worth 1,000,000 when it comes to looking at a spine, right? So, from front to back, I want to see you nice and straight like this. I don't want to see your spine even go off a few degrees. If it's starting to do this, what do you think's happening? Do you think your brain is able to get proper life across this system or no? No, it's choking life off. Okay? From the side, most important thing I could possibly see is this curve right here. We call it the curve of life. This is someone facing this way, this direction. Okay? This nice banana-shaped curve. Okay? When I started practicing almost 20 years ago, I used to see this a lot. Guess what? Now I see that almost on every single patient, unfortunately. Why is that so devastating? Because your spinal cord travels right through the center of the vertebra, through the neck, and when you have this curve, the spinal cord is nice and relaxed. There's no stretching, there's no pressure on it at all. Okay? If I've lost that curve, and I take you back in a minute, I'm going to show you your x-rays, and your curve, and you lost that curve and it looks like that, worst thing that can happen. It stretches the spinal cord. Most people's spinal cord is about that big in diameter. If I stretch that, what's going to happen to the diameter of it? It's going to do that. So if all of this life sits right here to keep all your organs healthy, and you've lost that, what do you think's happening to that spinal cord? It just can't, the life can't get through it like it should. It literally starts choking off life. So no matter what happens, if I take you back and we just saw that, is that healthy or sick? Yeah, because this is the thing. Your body's either doing one of two things. You're going on the line with the law of health, and you're getting healthier. You're going this way. Your body's continually taking old cells and manufacturing healthy new cells, or you're going the opposite way. What's the opposite of life? Death, right? Yeah. The opposite of it. So it's not like I go, okay, I got right here. I adjusted my spine a few times, and I did some of the home care stuff, and I started to straighten things out a little bit more, and I got that curve back. I'm just going to stop. What happens if you stop brushing your teeth right now? Do they get worse or better? They get worse. Same thing with your health. I stop, it's going to go this way. So what I'm teaching you is something you want to incorporate for the rest of your life, because it's the cornerstone of your health. So, what's the difference now between correcting the spine and adjusting the spine? In the past, before I learned how to correct a spine, somebody would come into my practice and maybe they look like that, and they came in because they're like this. Doc, this is killing me. I've been everywhere. I went to the PT, I did the medications, and nothing is helping. It helps for a little bit and then it comes right back. Okay, so I locate that vertebra that's now shifted out just a little bit more, a little more subluxated. It's putting a little pressure now on the sensory nerves, causing you the pain, and I find that and I put it back in the proper position, and they walk out like this. Oh my gosh, Doc, can I give you a hug? I love you. Oh my gosh, I haven't had this relief. And their spine still looks like that, and they've lost the curve, and they walk out until when? They're in pain again. And that could be a year, could be 6 months or whatever. So again, imagine if you didn't brush your teeth for 6 months or a year. What do you think's happening to this person's spine? It's degenerating worse. They're starting to do this worse. The discs are degenerating worse. It's getting worse. They've lost that curve. I mean, it's just starting to compress everything, starting to put more pressure on that nervous system, choke more life off. And now, 6 months later, that same person goes into the doc because now they're starting to develop some weird feelings. And maybe now they got some sort of heart palpitations, or maybe it's a high blood pressure. And it's because of a result of this. They didn't know. And now they go, okay, well, the doc put me on these, and he told me, he looked at my chart and he saw that my dad had it, my grandpa had it, so it's genetic. So we buy into that. Or the doc said, I said, but doc, I don't have any history of this. And he looks and he goes, well, you are 53 now. It's just your age. So we buy into that, right? When really, if we can go back and under spinal correction, very specific procedure, like if you wanted your teeth straight, what are you going to do? You're going to go to the orthodontist, a specialist. It's like me. And they're going to say, hey, you know what? Okay, we can get your teeth straight, but it's going to take, what? Do they usually say a week?
No, like a year.
Yeah, sometimes a year, sometimes 2 years, sometimes 3, right? And we're going to tighten these wires, and we're going to put these rubber bands on, and we're going to slowly move things back into place. That's what spinal correction is. If your spine looks like that when I take you back in a minute, you think I can adjust it one time and everything's going to go back like this? No way. Okay? I've got to start to work with you very specifically for your spine to start to straighten that out a little bit more, to start to bring that curve back. Okay? I can't get you perfect a lot of times, but you know what? I've seen people go from something like this, and we've corrected them 2 degrees, and they're able to reduce their medication, sometimes get off. Or we've brought this curve back just a little bit, because there's already so much damage there, we can't maybe get it perfect, but just starting to get this healthy again makes a massive difference in people's health and life. So chiropractic care is starting to look a little different than you guys thought, right?
Yes.
Completely different. I didn't know this stuff. I wish I would have known this stuff when I was a kid, because you know what? Quickly, my story was this. When I grew up, I was the youngest of 4. Guess what I was labeled as a young kid? The dumb kid. Who wants to be labeled as the dumb kid? No one. There's not a person on the planet that wants to be labeled as the dumb kid. So what did I do? I didn't like school. School was hard for me. I didn't understand it. I could read a piece of paper, a page 5 times, and someone go, what did it say? And I go, I have no idea.
I see that was the same way.
Because nowadays, back in the 70s, they didn't have a diagnosis for ADD. Now I would have been diagnosed as ADD, attention deficit disorder, right?
That's what I kind of.
So my whole life, 18 and a half years, I go through life, and guess what I always wanted to be? A doctor. But what do you think happened to my dream? If I couldn't even barely get past 1st grade, and then barely past 2nd grade, and then 3rd grade, and I was ridiculed, what do you think happened to my dream? Slowly just got crushed.
They put me
Slowly
on
got snuffed out.
Ritalin, and it made
Yeah.
me worse.
Yeah, and that's what they do. I'm thankful they didn't have that drug back then,
Right.
because unfortunately it destroys a lot of kids.
Yes.
It did. Bad.
So my life was 18 and a half years, barely make it through high school. And then I had an injury that changed my life. I had an injury where I was doing some heavy weightlifting with a friend of mine who was a power lifter, and I fractured my low back. So I started going to the specialist. Well, I'd been to the doctors my whole life. That was part of my life. My parents would pull me out of school almost 2 to 3 times a month. And so when I was really young, I always tried to cover it up. They go, where'd you go? What happened? You just disappeared. And then all of a sudden, pop, you're back in class. And I didn't want everybody to know because I was embarrassed. So what did I say? Oh, my mom took me to lunch. Well, I wasn't lying, because she always did, because she felt bad. And, honey, I'll take you to lunch afterwards, right after we run these tests on you at the doctor, right? So my whole life was going to doctors, and no one could ever tell me what was wrong with me. They just said, you know what they told me? You're just a little slow, kid. And someday you might grow out of this. So that was my cross and my burden to bear my whole 18 and a half years of my life. And it sucked. It sucked. I did not like school. I didn't like myself because of it. I was embarrassed. I was humiliated. I just wanted to fit in and be a normal kid, and I couldn't. So anyways, my dreams are gone at this point. So I fracture my back. Okay, well, I start going to the doctors again to see what's wrong with me. I was used to that my whole life. So I go to the doctor, and I'm going to these specialists. I went to San Francisco. I went to UC Davis. I went to all these specialists. And you know what they determined? you gotta have back surgery, or this will never get better. And my only question to them was this, okay, if I have back surgery, what are my guarantees? Can you just tell me that this pain that I got in my leg, and I've had it now for several months, is gonna go away, because it's excruciating. It feels like I have my leg in a fire all day long. And I'm exhausted because I can't sleep. And they said, we have no idea. In fact, you might wake up from the surgery and have pain in the other leg too. We don't know. And I said, okay, well then I'm not doing it. And so anyways, I go through a couple more months like this, and I'm just barely getting around campus and stuff. I'm in school, just trying to take some classes. And then I'm in the gym one day. And have you ever had that feeling where you know someone's like from a long ways away coming right at you, and they're just coming right at you? And this guy's walking across the gym, and I'm like, man, I'm like looking around, and he's like, keeps coming right at me. Finally, he comes right up to me and he goes, hey, he goes, your brother told me what happened. He says, and it was one of my older brother's friends, and he goes, I might be able to help you. And I said, really? I said, what do you do? And he goes, I'm a chiropractor. And I said, do you realize that I've been to the best, smartest specialists at UCSF, UC Davis, all around? How's a chiropractor going to help me? They said I need surgery. And he looked at me and goes, do you want to get better? And I said, yeah, of course I do. He says, then you'll be at my office at 7:30 before I open tomorrow. I said, okay. So I showed up. He took x-rays, he checked me out, and he goes, hey, he goes, I see this all the time, I can help you. I said, great, let's get started. And he goes, and I said, well, wait, before that, I said, how much is this going to cost? And he goes, what does it matter?
I could make it better.
Exactly, and I said, you're right. I never had a credit card before, and I got a credit card that day, and I put all of it on a credit card. I'm a poor student. And I put all of it on a credit card, and I just said, you know what? Okay, I'm going to do this. And so I committed to it. Within 1 month, I was 70% better. But the interesting thing about this story is that's not what changed my life. I'm very grateful for him for saving me from surgery, but that's not what changed my life. My life changed 1 week after I started getting adjusted. And mind you, my chiropractor never told me the information I just shared with you tonight. So I had no idea why it changed. But what happened was this. I'm struggling through school. I'm going with my roommates to the library. And they would leave, and they would kick me out of the library. They knew me by name in the library. They'd say, hey, Strombeck, you got to get out of here. You know, we're closing the library. Okay, fine. So I'd close my book, and then I would go the next day, and I would get a seat where my other guys, all my other roommates would get an A, and they left 3 hours before me, and I'm barely getting through school. A week after I started getting adjusted, changed like that. Overnight. Overnight, I went from the bottom of the class, barely getting to the next grade level, to straight A's. And I'm sitting in the quad one day, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, how did this happen?
Mental clarity.
How did this happen? And I thought, and I went, gosh, I remember one doctor when I was a kid told me, you know what, kid, you might grow out of this someday. So that's what I thought it was. Thought I grew out of it. I finally hit an age where I grew out of it. I don't know what miraculously happened. In fact, at that point, I was like, I don't really care. And
Go with it.
yeah. So literally, what do you think started to happen to my dreams of becoming a doctor? Life started breathing back into those dreams. So life starts breathing back into my dreams, and I'm like, wow, I could actually do this. I'm super excited now. I love school, right? So I finished off school with flying colors, top of the class, and I decided, hey, you know what? I want to save other people from back surgeries like maybe my chiropractor did. So that's what I wanted to
I
do.
denied it like 10 years ago.
Yeah. So I started in chiropractic school. I applied, got accepted to a few. I started chiropractic school. I'm sitting in the second quarter of school, and I'm taking a neuroanatomy class, right? And this teacher comes in, and he's super excited. He's like, class, sit down, sit down. I got some amazing news that they just discovered. And there's a school down in New Zealand, and they started doing a test where they would do a live scan of your brain, and they wanted to know if you were subluxated, and hopefully you guys remember that term, misaligned vertebra at the top of the neck right there, what's called the atlas, the base of the skull, does it affect the way the brain processes information? And this study is proving that it does. Right there, it hit me like a ton of bricks, and I went, that's why? All my life I'd been subluxated right here. Never had headaches, never had ear infections, was never that kid that had any symptoms, but my symptoms were, I had a tough time processing information. I could read something 20 times and go, I have no idea, because my mind would drift and
I'm all
wander.
visual. You could tell me a million times, but I have to like visually
Yeah.
see it or I won't remember it.
So chiropractic care changed my life forever, and I didn't even know it because he didn't share the information. That's why I'm so passionate about getting this information out, because this is imperative to people. I saw a guy come in here, this is the last thing, and then I'll take you back and show your x-rays in a second. I had a guy come in here, and you know, guys are the worst about getting information out of them, right? They're horrible. So he writes his name on the paper and maybe checks a few boxes, and I get this, and I'm like, okay, I don't even know why he's here, right? So he comes back, and I was like, hey, why are you here? And he goes, I've been watching a lot of your stuff on Facebook. And he goes, and I've been watching a lot of, you post stuff on YouTube too. He's like, I started reading about spinal correction. And he goes, I think I understand this. And he goes, I want to start incorporating this into my life. I'm like, okay. And I said, do you have any problems? He goes, I do have one. He goes, I'm a stage 5 kidney failure. What is stage 5 any organ failing is? You're on a transplant list?
Yeah.
So I said, I'm really sorry to hear that. I said, but where are you on a transplant list? And he says, down at UC Davis. And he goes, if I got the call tonight at 2 o'clock in the morning or tomorrow morning, he goes, I would have a window of time. I got to get down there. They're going to put me on an operating table. They're going to open me up. They're going to take both my kidneys out, and they're going to put the transplanted kidney in my body. I said, so what does life look like after that for you? He goes, well, then I'm going to be on anti-rejection medication. Well, what is an anti-rejection medication? It suppresses the immune system so the body won't attack the new kidney, right? So it suppresses that. So what's the best cancer killer on the planet, bar none, with no side effects? Your own healthy immune system kills cancer all day long. So what happens to your chance of cancer now? It goes way up. I'm like, wow. I said, how much is this going to cost? And he goes, it's an unknown factor. I've already asked him.
Yeah.
He goes, there's no idea. He goes, we have no idea how much this is going to cost because there might be complications during the surgery. He goes, we have no idea. So you have no idea how much you're going to pay for this? And he goes, no, I have no clue. Even though I have great insurance, he goes, I have no clue. I said, what about the meds after? He goes, they estimate it's going to cost me out of pocket about $500-600 a month. So he starts getting his spine adjusted. He starts correcting his spine. We start to straighten things out front to back. We start to get things healthier again. About 8 weeks go by. I said, how are things going? He goes, I just had my blood work done on Monday. And he goes, on Wednesday I went to my kidney specialist. And the kidney specialist came in the room with my chart and sat down and got on a little stool and rolled really close to me. He goes, it was almost uncomfortable. And he goes, what have you been doing? And he got really nervous, like, oh, did things get worse? And he goes, why do you ask? And he goes, because I've never seen this happen. And he goes, what? And he goes, you're now a stage 4. He goes, your kidneys for the first time in almost a decade are getting healthy again. What's going on? I didn't do anything to heal that guy. Remember, his brain grew the kidneys. As long as we recommunicate that information, they're going to strive for health because that's the law of health. That is how we were created. If we go with how we were created and we allow this system to work properly again, that's the best thing you could possibly do for yourself. So I'm going to take you guys back. I'm going to show you, go over your x-rays. We're going to be in there about 2 minutes.